And away we go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Fucking Cameron in the drum. Mr. Boom Gasper. You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
Hello everyone, welcome to Live on Four Legs, the definitive live Pearl Jam podcast, and we're here today to cover Reading UK Festival 2006. Randy Sobel here, John Farrar over there.
Hello.
Hi John, how's it going?
Good man, how are you?
We are doing great. Looking forward to this episode, and we'll get to a very special guest in just a second. But before that, let's get into some Live on Four Legs type news. Last week, we released something a little different. Our first in the Evolution, baby, episode series, and it was Yellow Ledbetter. But if you caught this, we released a second episode that focused on Leash that was exclusive to Patreon. So, that episode is currently on Patreon right now. If you would like to subscribe to Patreon, John, would you like to explain Patreon to people?
Patreon is a way that you can support the show. It's a way to help us, give us a chance to do cool stuff, like more giveaways. You guys did some charity stuff last year that was great. It's a way that you can support the show and even come and be on the show. Like, that's how I started on the show. It came on. We did Atlanta 94 in episode 10. I had so much fun. I think I harassed you guys for about 3 months to come back sooner. We came back and did Charlotte 2013, which was great. And I weaseled my way onto the show. So Patreon is just a way, there's no minimum. We don't have, certain tiers for anything as of right now. But all you have to do is you can donate $1, donate $5, donate as much as you like. You'll get a chance to pick a show and come on the show, talk to us about it, and get a chance to get access to some cool episodes that we've done and that we're gonna do in the future.
Yeah, and we actually have a new patron for this week. So shout out goes to Dan Baston. Thank you, Dan, for supporting the show. So Dan not only gets access to lots of good stuff, including New Year's Eve 1992, VH1 Storytellers, and last week's Leash episode, but Dan gets an opportunity to come on the show and talk about his favorite Pearl Jam show or just any Pearl Jam show that he would like to. So Dan, email us or we'll email you and you'll have that opportunity. Once again, thank you for the support, and we'll get you on a show very soon. So a lot of stuff there, a lot of plans for the future, especially maybe even a vault release like we've mentioned, the old Wheezy Street Records. Maybe we should just wait until Record Store Day next year to do it.
Oh no, we need to release that thing. Easy Street. Free Easy Street.
I texted Matt last week. Not last week, yesterday.
Free Easy Street.
Use it. Post it on social media. Get it out there. At Matt, at Matt Raymond, whatever his handle is. I was texting with him yesterday, actually, and I had mentioned it's very hard to get a response back from him. But once I had mentioned, hey, you still have to send me Easy Street track, LOL, I did not get a response back from that. But however, what I did get a response back from him was for a very important thing that we're doing in 2 weeks' time. We are celebrating an anniversary show. That's right. We are celebrating our first anniversary, which is crazy. The year has just absolutely flown by. I if you're listening to this on Wednesday, yesterday was our 1 year anniversary since we started the Facebook page, which is amazing. And we have over 600 followers, 600 likes, which is just enormous and incredible. We thank everybody for the support. And to show our thanks, what we're going to do for our anniversary episode is we're going to let you choose it. We're going to do a poll episode. So what we did was we took all 4 of our legs. We used all 4 of our brains, 3.5 if you're including mine. But we decided that all 4 of us were going to pick a big-time show to use for the poll. And this has been posted to Facebook already. I'll pin it to the top of the page. It'll be on Instagram. It'll be all over the place. So you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to find it. So you'll be able to vote in the poll. And I'll post more things as we go along. But the poll is up. And here are the nominees for our anniversary episode that you can vote on. It's your choice to do this.
I was giving you a drum roll there.
Oh, I thought that was a lawnmower. The choices are, the nominees are Randy's Choice, Gorge 2005. Yeah. John's Choice, Greenville 2016.
Oh, that's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah, and if there's somebody listening out there, you're welcome. Buckley's Choice, Mudfest 1993.
What is Mudfest? Explain what that is.
Okay, so Mudfest was a Canadian festival that basically the whole entire time that Pearl Jam was on the stage, dirt was flying in their face the whole entire time. It's kind of like being at Randall's Island, how you're, on all these people moving around and it's nothing but mud and dirt flying up all over the place. And I watched the video a couple days ago. There's not a lot of crowd shots, but apparently it was a complete and utter disaster. Did I get that right?
Sounds good. More kind of equivalent to the Woodstock 94.
Sure.
Of Pearl Jam performances.
Yeah, my favorite thing about that Woodstock 94 is Les Claypool being on stage and people throwing mud at him during My Name is Mud, and him saying, the damn song's called My Name is Mud. I didn't say throw mud at me on the stage. One of my favorite moments.
The Green Day one will always be the highlight for me.
The Green Day one is fantastic, you're right. And then finally, last but not least, Matt's pick. He went a little more recent, Safeco, Night 2 of last year.
Oh, that's a great show, too.
It's a fantastic show. I think we got
great choices.
4 very awesome choices. And not only, there's a lot of stuff that we're promoting right now. Not just Patreon, not just the anniversary episode poll, but we are giving away a poster on the anniversary show day.
What?
Yes.
Why would we do that?
I don't know. I think we like people.
Those posters are so expensive. They're so hard to find.
Well,
how did we come up with an extra one?
I think we...
Oh, wait, it's from my personal...
there it is. There it is. So, John was very nice enough to say that he would give a poster away, and that's what we're doing. But in order to...
Should I drop another hint?
So last week you said it was an animal. What hint would you like to do this week?
Well, obviously this isn't going to be much of a hint, but it was a show that I attended.
Okay. And can we just say it's not Charlotte? Because that's such a rare poster.
Hey, I that's all I'm saying. That's
a $900 poster. I think it's probably not Charlotte.
That's probably a safe bet, although I cannot confirm nor deny that is the one or not the one or anything related. That's the only hint you get.
Yeah, keep it alive. Let people think that that's a possibility.
And technically, I don't think that poster has an animal on it. I think it has insects on it.
That's very true.
Can we get into the weeds on animals versus insects, and if we can get an entomologist on the show to help, that would be great.
I think we're live on too many legs at that point. So how can they get this poster? What's the best way for them to do it?
The best way is to go into Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review, write us a little note, and let us know that you did it. We really appreciate it.
Yep, send us a screenshot, either email us or we'll post more stuff to Facebook about it.
Make sure and send us your name. If your Apple Podcast ID is given to Fly 82, then make sure you send us your name so we have your information for the giveaway.
Yeah, and there are people that have rated us 5 stars in the past and that have posted. If you're one of them, again, send us an email. We want to know who you are and know that you're going to be listening to the show. And there are some people, last couple of days we've gotten some ratings, and people haven't, shown their work, and we don't know where those ratings came from. They were all 5-star ratings, but we're not sure where those ratings came from. So that was you. Just send us a little email. Just let us know that was you. I think there was somebody else that commented that I've never seen before. So if that was you, just please to qualify, send us an email.
Yeah, we want to make sure that everyone gets counted.
Absolutely.
If you're kind enough to go to that trouble and support us like that, then we want to make sure you get counted for the giveaway.
Absolutely. And that's live on 4legspodcast@gmail.com. Just send us a note or Facebook us or something like that. And if you aren't on Apple Podcasts, I don't know, for Spotify users, I don't know if there's a rating system on Spotify. I'm not too familiar with it. But what you can do in order to enter is you can rate us on Facebook. Leave us a comment on Facebook. I think there's a way that you can, rate this business, quote-unquote business. So if you do that, we'll be able to see it right on Facebook, and we'll know who you are. So that's another easy way to do that.
Randy, did you pre-order the new Vault vinyl release from PearlJam.com?
I did not, because I have a wedding
to pay for. You still haven't?
I have a wedding to pay for, John. So unless you want to get me a really nice wedding gift.
I was going to say, maybe someone out there want to give you a nice present.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anybody? Pretty cool. So what'd you think of the show choice?
I think it's great. It's all Seattle shows are always special. I'm looking forward to putting it on the turntable and giving it a listen.
Would have been nice. I think we mentioned this before. When we were talking through text, that would have been nice to see a 1996 show, or something from 96, 98, and one of those. I was saying the Vote for Change shows would have been cool, but I'm never going to complain about a 1993 Seattle show. I think.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. We're gonna have to have some plans to cover that show, I think, closer to the release, right?
Once everybody gets the record shipped and has some time to digest it and is able to listen to it, I think we'll shortly after that we'll touch up on the show. I think that's an absolute definite.
Awesome. So that's something to look forward to.
And maybe in 2020, maybe we will, because we've done a couple of Vault shows. We've done Soldier Field and Vic Theater. Maybe we'll do the rest of them. Maybe we'll do Aladdin Theater, and maybe we'll do Missoula and
Mount Baker.
Mount Baker, sure.
Birmingham. Yep. That's a great show.
Yeah, we got a lot to do. We're not done. So. And one last thing before we get into our guest, just if you have any stories, if you like what you're listening to so far, want to give us some feedback, want to share a little idea that you have, or give us an idea for the next show, feel free to email us at liveon4legspodcast@gmail.com. Somebody that did send in an idea for an episode. This was, this was probably in the winter at some point, but we got an email from him, and I was very surprised because I had never actually heard of his podcast before, and he sent from his podcast email, and I was very intrigued because, this is one podcaster reaching out to another podcaster. I'm like, oh, this is cool, this is awesome. I didn't think that, other podcasts were listening to us, but, it turns out they were. So today we're going to introduce you to Tom Kwei. He is the host of the Alphabetallica Podcast. Tom, welcome to Live on Four Legs.
Hey, Randy, John, guys. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for...
Our pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Look, you sent this in a while ago, and you said that Reading 06 was your only show that you'd ever been to.
That's right, yeah, and love the show. I discovered you guys through single podcast theory that I discovered in turn through Metal at your podcast. And you mentioned before about podcasters reaching out to each other, and we're a sacred brotherhood. The podcast that cover bands in this depth, there's quite a lot of them out there. Sabbath bloody podcast, Deep Purple podcast, Metallicast, there's various ones. I'm still praying for a Soundgarden one. No one's actually done a Soundgarden one yet, but hopefully we can put that seed into the ether. But I think you said on one of the episodes, suggest some shows to us, and it always appealed to me with these kind of ideas, like with Metallica podcast, not just doing the big famous shows, the Pink Pops, etc., but just doing 2006 Avocado was out. They're doing a few headline shows over in Europe. I happened to be there on that Sunday with my great friend Chris, who is I just want to shout him out. Chris Hicklin is a giant Pearl Jam fanatic. I think he's seen them 10, 12 times. He's constantly going around Europe to see them. But we went down together, and I can't say I remember too much of the show, to be honest. I was 14 years old. It's a bit of a blur. But looking back, it's been a great trip down memory lane.
Now, this is really interesting. So this is a 3-night festival, camp out, the whole thing, think Bonnaroo, think, any of those other festivals in America for all you Americans not familiar with what Reading Festival is. But night 3, this is such a weird grouping of bands. It's kind of, I mentioned to you before, it's kind of Warped Tour and Pearl Jam and Slayer. So, the big bands on the bill, this must be the main stage. Taking Back Sunday, Less Than Jake, Bullet for My Valentine, My Chemical Romance, Slayer, Placebo, and Pearl Jam headlining. So obviously you're there for Pearl Jam, but what else sparked, what else was the reason why this was the night you guys wanted to go to?
Absolutely, strictly Pearl Jam. We were only there for Pearl Jam. Just briefly, me and Pearl Jam, we're always aware of them as this cultural music force. Even Flow was on in the background as a young teenager. And then I bought Rearview Mirror, the Greatest Hits 2 disc. Really enjoyed that. Got 10, got Verses. Still am really enamored by Stone. To me, that's who I kind of gravitate towards. I just adore his guitar playing. I've since got onto Green River and Mother Love Bone. I actually forgot they did Crown of Thorns in this. So that was a pleasant surprise again going back. But this was like Pearl Jam fever. Avocado had just come out that summer. I remember going down, being so excited because this was I was so into Pearl Jam at the time, and this was actually their new record. This is the first record of theirs I could actually get my teeth into and appreciate in real time. I remember buying that and buying Stadium Arcadium, the double disc Chili's album, on the same day. Such a 2006 rock day there. But I remember Worldwide Suicide coming out on some weird proto-Napster stream and hearing Unemployable with it. And Unemployable still one of my favourite Pearl Jam songs, and just falling in love with that song. And we were just in PJ mode, and it didn't seem real that we were actually being given the opportunity to see the band quite close to where we are. At the time I was living in my hometown of Birmingham. It's about 100, 150 miles away from Reading. My friend Chris's mom drove us there, and we just sort of spent the day together watching band stuff. But there was nothing else on the bill that stuck out to me. I remember Less Than Jake were quite good. My Chemical Romance played as well. That was just when they were in their Black Parade idea, and it became quite a notorious concept because the lead singer Gerard Way instigated a chant screaming "fuck the Daily Mail." I don't know if you know about the Daily Mail, but it's this kind of tabloid rag over here that incites kind of racial hatred. It's like the New York Post, I would think, right? Yeah, exactly, yeah. And everyone was just chanting "fuck the Daily Mail." I think that was like headline news at the time and stuff. But we were just there for PJ. Everyone else on the bill was just kind of spare, really.
It feels so weird because none of these bands that even on night 1 and night 2, none of these bands would even open up for Pearl Jam in the States. It's such a weird mix. You have night 1, Franz Ferdinand is the closer that night. The Kaiser Chiefs, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, Bell and Sebastian, Dashboard Confessional. That's a very strange mix right there. And this is you think about nowadays Fall Out Boy being the 4th or 5th band on the bill, they would be like a night 3 headliner at this point. And then night 2, you have Muse, Arctic Monkeys, Flogging Molly, Raconteurs, Wolf Mother, Coheed and Cambria. Those were the ones that really stuck out to my mind. But it's very Warped Tour-ish to me, and in a way eclectic, but still, I personally like a lot of these bands, so I would have had a good time. But it sounds like you were there for Pearl Jam, and it sounds like as a headlining act, they really delivered on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it's so weird seeing Pearl Jam headline this, because now Reading and Leeds culturally is very much the sort of youth festival. It's after A-levels, you're 18, you go to your first festival, it's all kind of like Billie Eilish and Post Malone and those sort of drugged out simp stuff. It's no longer a real rock festival. So it's just like Pearl Jam would never headline Reading these days. Like they couldn't really headline a UK festival anymore, I don't think. Like they couldn't headline Glastonbury. It's not that they're not big enough. They just thematically aren't in that mould anymore. They're a little too... I don't know. I think some people would see them as old-fashioned, really, even though they're not. They're quite progressive in many ways, but
sure.
It's just such an artifact from '06 that Pearl Jam could headline Reading.
Yeah, and John, you said something when I was texting you last night that like it was kind of a sign of the time, like that '06, that every type of band that Pearl Jam could have headlined with back in '98, back in early '90s, almost had gone to the wayside.
Right. By this time, I mean, all the bands that they would have toured with, would have headlined with, or have broken up. They've already gone by the wayside. So they're kind of the anomaly in this group, but they're always going to be. Like in the music industry in 2006 is not what it was in 1992 and 1995. And Reading is in the business of selling 80,000, 100,000 tickets. They're going to get whoever the popular artists are at the time. So they're trying to capitalize on the zeitgeist of whatever year it is. So for them to pick Pearl Jam in 2006, coming off a new album, was, I'm sure, just to sell tickets. I wondered, just like Tom, I wonder how many people were there just to see Pearl Jam and didn't care about any other bands.
Yeah, and one of the crazy things that I wanted to bring up really early here is that when the first thing that you think of when it comes to Pearl Jam and festivals, maybe first or second thing, maybe you're thinking Pink Pop first, but obviously Roskilde comes up when you think of Pearl Jam and festivals. And doing as much research as I could on this, it seems like that a couple days before there was the Leeds Festival, and Pearl Jam played the Leeds Festival. That looks to be the first festival that Pearl Jam played since the incident happened. So they're still like, this is new to them. I wonder what it took on their part to get back into this, to say, all right, we're comfortable with this again, as long as there's security precautions in place, as long as everyone is safe, we'll be back into this. So I wonder what's going through their head.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of bands wouldn't have survived that. For them to, I'm not surprised they took 6 years off. I'm sure they had offers during Riot Act and the 2003, but they probably, it was too soon even for that. So I'm not surprised it took them 6 years to kind of dip their toe back into it.
Let's talk a little bit about festival set list for a second. And this one, as far as the festival set list goes, I think this is actually a really solid set list that we're about to get into. When you think set list, you think of basically, it's for the casual fan. It's, obviously, Tom, you're there for Pearl Jam. A lot of people are like you. I've been to a festival and only went for Pearl Jam. I think the opener of that festival for Pearl Jam was Drake, so that goes to show who was there. But a lot of people there that are still seeing them are the casual fan, and they have to sort of cater to that casual fan base there. And I look at another festival in England that they did, Hyde Park, which is a huge venue. You would think like enormous for them to even be playing there. And the set list, it was this past week they played the set list on Sirius, on the Sirius station, and it was just, there was nothing special about it outside of maybe Of the Earth was the only thing that you couldn't hear in a regular show. But this is just, you go through down the line and almost, it's every album has multiple songs on it except for No Code. And it's kind of incredible that they went to the lengths to do that for this one.
Yeah, there's nothing too surprising here or stuff that I didn't recognise at the time as a 14-year-old still getting into the band. There was a few songs that I wasn't really familiar with, but the majority, like Sad, for example, I hadn't really heard. But yeah, you're right. It does feel a bit of an appeal to the mainstream, really. Like loads of rockers early on, a real sort of satisfying closer, nothing that's going to catch many people out. It's kind of quite a crowd-pleasing sort of set list.
But then you mentioned Crown of Thorns, and I don't know if you knew this, but that was only the 11th time they had played Crown of Thorns. Crown of Thorns was a really rare song for them to do at the time. And it was probably in 2006 that they had picked it up a little bit and started playing it. I think they played it maybe, there was a lot of shows that year, but maybe 6 shows that year. But before that, it was as rare, that was a gem. So like to get that at this kind of show, I feel like this is kind of a step up from what they would do at a festival nowadays almost.
Yeah, and with Crown of Thorns, I mean, we'll get to the song, but it's a great barometer of the savviness of the crowd because you can actually hear an audible peal of joy when they start playing those opening chords. Like, people recognise what this song is, which obviously at the time I didn't know what the song is, didn't even appreciate that. But it's great to see that the fans are locked in with the material so much.
That you know what, that attributes to the fans and how many people were there for Pearl Jam. That I think that right there is your sign that people were there to go and see them, because I don't think anybody there for My Chemical Romance, for Slayer, are going to know this Mother Love Bone song that was barely popular back.
They're more Green River fans, I think, yeah.
If anything, yeah.
I think
they're more into Malfunction than, yeah.
The formatting of this is unique, too, because a lot of festival sets, you don't get an Encore 1 and an Encore 2. You might get a main set and one Encore where they have to compress and maybe a Crown of Thorns gets cut. Maybe something else in the Encore gets cut. But I think it's good for them that they were able to kind of treat this like a normal arena show, come out and do, what they did to start the first Encore, kind of run through a regular first Encore, maybe a compressed second Encore. But I think that allowed them to kind of play around with it a little bit too.
So let's get into the show now. They entered the stage to Master Slave, which is kind of cool. Doesn't happen a lot. If anything, they're entering the stage to Metamorphosis 2 or Home Away shows. They were doing I Davenita. So, kind of cool that they're getting, the first thing that you hear on the first Pearl Jam album. They're entering the stage to, they obviously did that. The Philadelphia 10 show back in 2016.
They mix it up a little. There's a few different ones that they go to intro those shows.
And they would do, I think in 2016, they were doing REM.
It Happened Today, yeah.
It Happened Today, yeah. And so they're on stage, and Ed, very rarely does Ed take the mic before actually going into a song. But, as we said before with Roskilde, they haven't played a festival often. I think it was just Leeds, and Leeds was, if not a couple days before, it was a week before, something.
2 days before, I think.
Right. So Ed starts off immediately with a safety announcement. Says, "Take care of one another."
Security's there to help. Someone goes down, just notify somebody. Take care of your neighbor. I know you can do it. We can do it together, and we can stop on a dime. Any song, anytime, we can just stop on a dime, start right back up. Just please take care of one another, yeah? And we're good to go.
And they start off with something we haven't covered on our show, surprisingly enough, in 44 some odd episodes. Interstellar Overdrive, the Pink Floyd tune. That is the often tease Into Corduroy. That's how they start off this show. as not just the open for Corduroy, but for the open to a show. I think this is such a great way to get into it, because it's kind of, if you don't know what Interstellar Overdrive is, it's kind of like it just feels like a jam, and it's just teasing you into Corduroy, and then when Corduroy hits, you kind of get excited. But what are you thinking? This is your first, Pearl Jam is hitting the stage, and you're hearing this riff to Interstellar Overdrive. Are you familiar with this Pink Floyd song at the time, or?
No, certainly not. I just the sheer adrenaline of seeing Eddie up there and hearing, like you say, the opening of 10 play out and just echo on the stage. And I forgot that he said his words, the very, very kind words there. But these giant crowds, they really can engulf you, and you see quite a lot as the camera cuts off, just everyone falling over each other constantly. And it always looks worse than it is, but I can understand why that might have alarmed Ed Frau. But yeah, didn't really know what that is. I mean, quite audacious that they open with a fairly deep cut, a cover nonetheless. Obviously it's a much truncated version, but this juggernaut riff, it warms them up, it gets the crowd ready. It's a nice opening of the contract, I think.
And that intro to Corduroy is one of the best things. It's one of the best moments on any Pearl Jam album and any Pearl Jam song. So opening with that is a sign that they're here to please the crowd, and it's going to be a great show.
Absolutely. We talked, a couple weeks ago, we talked Pink Pop, and we said you have to start off with in a festival environment. And obviously Pink Pop was a different beast and a different time, and they opened up that show with Even Flow. But we were saying, they were opening up normal shows with Release, with Oceans, and with things of sort of an easy manner to them. And right here, it's opening up the show. You've been there the whole entire day. They're opening up with something hard, one of their most singable electric songs, and it's great. The slow burn is awesome for a Pearl Jam show, but for a festival show, Corduroy or Go is always the one that I'm expecting there.
Yeah, it's great song, of course. Love the warmth of Corduroy as well, the richness, and from the off, the band were cutting loose. It's kind of crazy how wild they are from the top. Mike especially is just barreling across the stage.
Yeah, we talked again, Pink Pop, how intense Jeff was, and I think when you see that crowd and you see so many people, you know from earlier in the day, I'm sure they're peeking out there and they're seeing what the crowds are, but they're the last band that's playing on any stage that night. Everybody's focus and attention is on them. So they come out there, and Ed immediately is like, oh, good God, this is, next day is 70 or 80,000 people. As long as everybody's safe, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to kick ass on this. And I feel like that they can see that, they can sense that from the crowd, and that gives them even more energy that they would have, in an arena show. So after Corduroy, we get a really good combination of Do the Evolution, Animal, Worldwide Suicide, Severed Hand, all in this little spot here, and this is all real, good momentum, fired up songs here. Do the Evolution early is always a sign of everybody's ready to go, everybody's ready to just rock out. And Animal early is always excellent. But hearing a lot of these 5 songs, what stood out to you, Tom, during this grouping here?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, Live on 4 Legs ruins your PJ listening experience, because I
Thanks.
just listen,
really appreciate that.
In the best possible way, just through comparison and history and awareness, because I listened to the Soldier Field episode the other day, and the version of Animal on that is so much better than this version. This isn't a bad version, but it just, I don't know, I don't know if it's I don't want to use 9/11 as a marker, but kind of middle millennium, versus songs seem to lack some of the venomous whip and grind that make them so damn good. And, we get to the Warfleck chorus, and there's some crowd interaction, stuff like that. That was good. Severed Hand and Worldwide Suicide, that duo didn't really work for me. They're quite ponderous Avocado songs. Like Worldwide Suicide feels very much like a song that Eddie wrote on guitar. Like Eddie writes riffs in a very sort of almost caveman way where he's just kind of trying to define the melody line there, and they're not as inviting to me as something like Do the Revolution, which has more of a natural funk to it. But yeah, I think that worked well. I like that they didn't douse the whole set with the new album material. They get Severed Hand into there, which, I don't know, apart from its bridge, I find Severed Hand a little ponderous, a little ploddy.
And that's interesting that you say that, because Avocado songs, obviously the whole tour that they're doing this whole entire year is filled with Avocado, and I barely count Wasted Reprise as anything, but you're not going to get another Avocado song outside of that until the encore, which is kind of incredible at this point in the game. But I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying there with Ed's riff and Worldwide Suicide. It just feels it's very, it's very punk rock. It's very Who. There's no depth to it. But for a festival show like that, I think you just want something that's really upbeat, and I feel like it fit the energy.
Yeah, and this is the single at the time. Like, this is the song, as I said before, that we streamed online. And I think around this time, the band had been on Jules Holland as well. Are you guys familiar with Jules Holland?
I am not. No. I am. That's a great performance.
Yeah. So they'd been on it, and I think Ed was rocking the Avocado shirt on it as well. And they did Worldwide on there as well. But yeah, I like it. All in all, with these 5 songs, they've got the pedal to the metal. They're not kind of just pulling out Sometimes or something like that, or I'm Open. Like, they're just going for the they're going for the rockers. Like, people who maybe just know Pearl Jam as this kind of angsty, violent grunge band from the 90s. Like, they're getting what they expect.
And these are the crowd pleaser songs too, because the crowd participation, like Do the Evolution, everybody gets to clap. Animal, everybody gets to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against 1. So they're getting everyone involved right from the beginning.
Yeah, I really liked. There are 2 YouTube clips online. You listen to one of them, you can't really hear the crowd at all. The other one, you can hear the crowd much better. And when Eddie, in the chorus, the final chorus of Animal, he lays off. He lets the crowd have it. The crowd it sounds really full. The crowd is, for a festival crowd, I thought they were a terrific group.
Yeah.
You see. Like, the wave of people, the flags that are in the crowd are incredible. They're on like 20-foot poles or whatever. Were you near one of those flags? That's got to be a safety precaution there.
We were really near the front, if I remember correctly. So basically what happened was Placebo, who played beforehand, they were marred by loads of technical issues. So what happened is what normally happens at these festivals. Everyone's bored. No one's on stage. There's thousands of people in the field. So the cameramen, post Me Too, this is unacceptable, but will just hang on girls and women who will flash. And this happened for like half an hour. So me and my friend, like 14, were on our eyes full. It was incredible. But we managed to, loads of people left. And I don't know how many people were there for, like, obviously the people were there for Pearl Jam, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like, I've listened to all your episodes, stuff, Riding the Rail and all that idea. Like, it's a different type of fan. So we managed to get quite close. As to the flags themselves, I don't know where they were fulcrumed at, but that's a classic thing. I mean, Glastonbury kind of birthed that idea. That's where you'll see the most flags, like humorous messages and stuff. But yeah, no, it was cool to see, and it's just a baying mob, isn't it, that really are singing back to the band.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can tell, I'm going to guess that it's one of those things where, everybody just kind of does their own thing. And I remember this from being at Warped Tour shows and even being at that, that Pearl Jam festival show. That I won't even get into what happened that night. But, just knowing from, being around and waiting for a band like Rancid to come on, and then once at 3:00 hit and Rancid was about to play and the whole crowd bum rushed the stage, like, that's how everybody is there for a specific something. So I can see the same, the parallels in between. So Ed actually, after these 4, he addresses the crowd. He has a bottle of wine in hand, of course, and he says, if this is how you look 3 days in, you must have been on fire Friday, or at least save some stuff up for us. And then Ed mentions the flags and says all these different country, and then he mentions something about pirates. I guess that there was a pirate flag somewhere.
Sure.
And it says, being from America, we should clarify by saying we come in peace. Ooh, yeah. We do. by the way. As Americans, we come in peace. Anyway, after all that, Dissident is here, and Dissident, to be played at this festival, it's only 19% of the shows in 2006, so it feels like the crowd is getting something at least a little different. If not, if you don't want to call it rare, fine, but uncommon, cool. It's not 1994. This is not in the set every single day, but, I always listen to the end of the song. I always want to hear how Ed does with his stamina. He kills it. He's locked in. He doesn't lay off of it and just do the escape is never. He sings the whole entire thing, and that to me, like that's a thumbs up for this.
Yeah, not a huge fan of Dissident. I know somewhere Brad B is pulling his hair out at the thought of Dissident being discussed. But yeah, this is a great performance. John's
not a fan either, so.
Yeah, it's just that the leads are a little officious and obvious and sort of quasi Stevie Ray voice. I don't really know. Like I actually think Mike McCready's an overrated guitar player, but we don't need to get into that can of worms for another day. I know I shouldn't have even said that.
Ooh. Looks like there's not going to be any crossover fans between Live on Four Legs and Alphabetallica anytime soon.
I've just burned every bridge.
What should I say about Kirk? What should I say about Lars?
Kirk's horrible as well. No, that's the problem. I alienate loads of my listeners because I rag on Kirk pretty mercilessly. So yeah, but yeah, like Brad B as well. I like the bridge to this song, and I totally agree with what you're saying. Eddie gives his all throughout this show. He's hitting a lot of those notes. He's coming with that deep-throated, gritted teeth snarl. Really impressive performance from him and the whole band.
I think Dissident, this version is kind of rushed. Like it lost a lot of power for me. We've done those 90 shows like that. Atlanta 94 version is so good. One of the best. But by 2006, I think they're in their 40s now. You're not going to get these versus songs. They're not going to have the same groove, the same power that they did. I mean, obviously you want them to keep playing them. They're not going to drop them completely. But something like this, I think it, at least on when you go back and listen to it, I'm sure if you're there, it's great. But go back and listen to it. It just sounded rushed. It just sounded like it kind of thin, like it didn't have any power for me.
So Ed kind of checks in with the crowd real quick. Because he wants to take care of a security issue. So again, they're really, they're very concerned at what's going on, and they want.
Yeah, they're going to be hypersensitive to anything that they see.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and of course, Ed, trying to kill time, just says, nice night on Earth. It's beautiful out, and that's going to get us into Even Flow. And this is your ideal festival song, and everybody in the crowd knows it, so they're jumping around and dancing to it. So Even Flow hits, and what's 14-year-old Tom thinking?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we're waiting for, really, and legendary track that I know you guys cover at every edition. You've sort of gone through all the various permutations of it. Interesting to see the ghostly glow of phone screens in the audience as well, even in 2006, which I would have thought would have been before that, but there were still people there. Yeah, I don't know what people were recording, or it was some fucking polyphonic, but yeah, I mean, yeah, the crowd is going mental here. You can see these just grand swaths of people sort of pushing and falling down, and that's just a victim of the circumstance. Ed's voice is powerful. Mike is in his neck cocked back concentration bag, keeps carving higher and higher. It's it's a fun addition. I mean, again, it's a little overtly quick. It just loses that kind of swampy crunkness that the sort of studio version has. But not too much to really say. I think the kind of end when it goes into Matt's solo drum piece is a little bit haphazard. The links between it feels a little bit kind of rushed, perhaps a little bit jammy. But all in all, again, this is probably loads of people left after this. They'd heard what they needed to heard, and they delivered.
Oh, no.
Oh, they missed out. This version, I mean, I love the way Mike starts his solo with just sustaining those notes, bending those notes, kind of easing into it. And then the transition when he kind of goes up and like gets the feedback on the amp, feedback into Matt. And
Yeah, I agree with you, John. Just the feedback that Mike was getting, obviously he's doing all his behind the back shtick, but if you look at him, you look at his eyes, it looks like he's in pain doing this. It looks like he's putting all this pressure on his neck when his guitar's back there. And
he's playing with feeling. A lot of technicality doesn't impress me. Like, there's a reason Rush is not the greatest band of all time. But when you play with feeling, then you're connecting with people, and you're giving something of yourself, putting something of yourself in the performance, and that's going to make it stand out to people. And that's what connects with me more than just trying to be all technical and playing as many notes as you can play in 2 minutes. 2006 Even Flow is always a highlight, because that was when Matt kind of took on that solo, and I love the way it transitions into it. I love the way he kind of picks up the rhythm. He plays almost the rhythm of the song on the drums. It's hard to do if you've ever, played drums.
So after this really good version of Even Flow, Ed says that for anybody that knows our records, you'll know this one is one of the Lost Dogs, and kind of crazy for them to do a Lost Dog like this. Sad had only debuted live in 2004, so it hasn't had a real lot of time, and it's the first of 3 binaural era songs in this set, and that's kind of crazy if you consider just the time and binaural not getting its due nowadays. But I thought if anything was rushed on this show, this was the one that was rushed to me. But just hearing it in a set, it gives you hope. If you know that you can only make a festival show in the future, it gives you hope that maybe you can get something like this, that you're not just going to get Elderly Woman and, Alive and Even Flow and Jeremy, and that's it.
Sure. Yeah, I really like this one. Great song, that cool jagged riff. I think it makes it quite accessible, that as well. It's quite melodic and quite on the sort of the ground floor level. You don't really have to do too much thinking with the track. Eddie with that target telly as well. Mike again really going for the performance. A lot of day slides in. It's just so Pearl Jam really for them to put this in there. Like so many other bands wouldn't do something off the B-sides record. They would maybe go for something that was a bit more, maybe put deep in here, but no, they'll put sad in. So yeah.
And it was a little rushed, but I think this starting with Even Flow, this little 5-song mini set in the middle we can talk about is probably my favorite part of the show. Sad is a song like in an alternate reality. Sad would have been a huge single off of Binaural. It is a B-side, a Lost Dog, but it fits in with the show where they're playing those crowd-pleasing numbers, the poppier songs. It's definitely, something that for the people that know it, it's a highlight. But even if they don't know it, people are going to go back and be like, what was that song they played? Let me go find that. That was a great song,
Yeah, and John, you hit the nail on the head there, that this section is really strong, and to the point where we'll get at it at Grievance in a second, where it's almost like they had to realize that they're on top and they had to kind of ease it down a little bit. But you get in this section after Sad, I Am Mine into Jeremy into Grievance. And while I Am Mine would be considered a breather on most shows, it's continuing momentum and it's continuing the energy. It's so important.
This had the power that Dissident did not. It was a full performance. It definitely had the emotion. It had that crunch and that grind that you look for in a live show.
And I can see people, the casuals in there, and basically if you're a casual in this kind of crowd, you have to feed off other people's reactions. So if the Pearl Jam fans are in it on this song and they're saying, oh, I Am Mine, I'm really feeling this one, then the casuals are gonna be rocking out hard as well. Did you notice things like that, Tom, with the songs like this that maybe a casual fan wouldn't necessarily react to?
I mean, Randy, I'll be lying to say if I can remember anything really of this show. There's one thing I remember, which we'll get to. Distinctly being in the crowd and experiencing the moment on stage, but other than that, no. But yeah, I think this is a great version. You know, fitting with the festival as well. I Am Mine has always to me had a kind of a campfire, kumbaya kind of downtrodden uprising vibe, and I totally agree with what you're saying as well, John. They really do pull off this song well, and it just has that subtle lilt to it that's handled really delicately here, and very inspiring. And Into Jeremy, which, you know, just for me at my age, like I didn't come of age when Pearl Jam were like, you know, the biggest band ever, and Jeremy was on MTV all the time and stuff like that. I think Jeremy's legit one of the greatest songs ever written. I think it certainly has one of the greatest vocal melodies of all time.
There are some good harmonies in this version too near the end. I think it's probably Matt who comes in. It sounds really nice and really full.
Yeah, this is, look, and I think that it's one of those songs, it's kind of, it's a little bit controversial when it comes to Pearl Jam fans now that, you know, okay, no Jeremy, they don't want to play it as much anymore, they don't want to hear it as much anymore, and we hear it with Steve that comes on the show sometimes, and he hates Jeremy, but, I think a lot of the Pearl Jam fans, I don't know what it is, if it's bitterness towards their success or whatnot, but a lot of people don't necessarily want to hear it anymore. And I've sort of was on that fence, and I've crossed the other way now, and I'm okay with Jeremy being a part of this show now, but it has to be played in a festival. You can't go to a festival and not hear all three of their top 10 songs.
And again, a great live song. You get, for them, they know what kind of crowd is going to be at this show. For them to put this song in there, you're going to get everyone doing the woes at the end. That's a special moment for everyone at this show.
It's quite hair raising. It's absolutely beautiful moment, and the balance of the guitars is excellent. Like, sound can be so choppy on these big stages, on these big festival arenas, but here, Stone and Mike just interplay, so they build so brilliantly, and I love the way they face off. And Eddie, he's not quite as gravelly as Ten. He's quite conversational in points, but still spirited. And does Mike do this move regularly? I mean, you guys watch a lot of live shows, hitting a chord and pointing at someone in the crowd. He seems to love doing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, he'll do it. Yeah. But he won't overdo it. There are things that Ed will overdo. They'll to an extent. There are other things that Mike can overdo. But the point to the crowd, no. I think that's maybe if you blink, you miss it kind of thing.
Well, I think a lot of people follow them around and get on the rail on Mike's side all the time. So he points out people that he recognizes and sees them. He'll be like, oh yeah, I remember you. It's his little way of giving those people a little moment.
If there's anybody that's in, of the 5 or 6 of them that's kind of in tune with the fans, I would think it's probably Mike would be the closest. So that would make sense. Grievances after Jeremy, and I just real quick on Grievance, the energy and the momentum is so high here that you hear on the second chorus of Grievance, Ed is going so hard that he loses his control. Break the illusion from the crowd, raise the stakes and boom down. If you live to obey, take it back again. The songs are back to back to back here, and he loses a little bit of control, and he has to sort of pick himself back up. It's kind of a fun moment in the realization of, like, okay, slow down a little bit, take a second to breathe, pause, look at the crowd. All right, now we're back into it. Like that, I thought that was kind of a cool realization that he was basically needed to cool down a little.
And he's the master of doing that. We talked about it before. He knows exactly when to put the crowd. He's got the crowd in his fingertips. He knows, by 2006 they played, however many shows they've been on tour. This is after the whole U.S. leg of the tour. He knows, he's a master of making that set list and knowing when to bring things up and when to bring things down.
And, you know, they're such an idiosyncratic band, Pearl Jam. I can't think of many other outfits that would play the reprise of a song, but not the actual song. Right. Like, you wouldn't play the reprise of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and not kick into the... You know, I don't... Like, I respect that they did it, and especially because Life Wasted, like, such an immediate track that, despite it being brand new, I think would have connected with Reading.
It's, you know, I always call Wasted Reprise. I wish I had, you know, some soccer reference that I can make with it, but it's the relief pitcher. It's the left-handed specialist that it can come out, you know, for one batter and strike him out or get a double play, whatever it has to.
It's the 90th minute sub.
Right. Sure.
Right. Okay. Now it makes sense.
If that's a thing. Not to me, but if that's a thing, then sure. But, you know, I think it can only go in two places. Since they've done it before Better Man, I think it makes sense that you hear it before Better Man. But one of these shows we did, and they did it before Porch, and it made absolutely no sense. It sounded off. The tempo sounded off. At least when it goes into Better Man, you kind of get that final chord that Boom plays, and then, you know, hitting into Better Man feels almost melodic. It feels like it's building towards something.
Well, it's used in a similar way like Setting Forth or Lucan is used in Not For You. It flows right into it. It's almost not a separate song. It's like it's used as that kind of like longer intro to Better Man.
Sure. Better Man performance here I thought was fantastic, by the way. Again, it's just another example, like Even Flow and like Jeremy, of the hits really hitting the mark and really getting the crowd into it with this version.
Yeah, glorious version, you know, real serving the fans here wonderfully. I'm a sucker for in songs when the singer drops away and the band accompany the crowd singing.
She lies and says she's in love with him.
Yeah, it doesn't get better than Better Man for that.
The best versions of Better Man have that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely for sure.
But no Save It For Later on this one. Just a little solo, and then that's done. I wonder if that was a time constraint.
You know, I'm wondering that too, but I'm also kind of okay with it. As much as I love the tag, it wasn't like... It wasn't the album version. It wasn't an abrupt ending. It was extended enough
they
where...
They jam on it a little bit, but it's not one of those, 7, 8, 9 minute versions.
This section here, after Better Man, Save You, Blood, Rearview Mirror, to close out the first set. Save You makes 2 Riot Act songs on this show. 2 Riot Act, 2 Binaural, 2 Vitalogy, a couple...
And zero no code.
0 no code, 2 Yield, I believe. If you are counting Ledbetter, I suppose, you can say 2 Lost Dogs. But, I mean, like, everything is really... it's exactly like Thanos wanted. It is balanced.
And I mean, Save You's a great version, scrappy version. Always really dug that song. Looking at the lyrics today, I always thought it was "I'm gonna save you for good." I never knew it was "I'm gonna save you."
No,
fucker.
I'm gonna save you, fucker.
Yeah, but I was like, damn, Ed, potty mouth. But yeah, that
I think it is on purposely vague.
Right.
You could read it as that as well. He does that a lot.
Yeah.
But this version starts off so fast he almost can't keep up with the lyrics at first.
Yeah, and
at least he's not saying drop the leash, get out of my lucky face.
Right. Damn, is that a thing?
John.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that on a Patreon episode, I'm sure. $1 a month. Interesting
to hear on a Riot Act track like this that is quite obscure and dense. The crowd clapping along to the bass drop, and that imbues it with a new enlivened energy. Blood is great. I mean, Stone is such a fun guitar player to watch. He's quite mechanical, but he really feels what he's playing, and he's really kind of like, his movements almost feel quite like a Tonka toy or something, like they're kind of quite rigid, but they're still quite, with the riff, and you can really feel it flowing through him. Mike again, wigging out towards the end of the song. I wasn't too big of a fan. I thought Rearview Mirror, I don't really love Rearview Mirror as a track. I know every Pearl Jam fan lives and dies for that track, but the middle kind of jammy section felt quite, I don't know, a bit basic, maybe. It just felt like they were just kind of doing these same kind of ascending riffs, and no one was really challenging each other. Again, we could have had Deep in there. I just love Deep. I wish they put Deep on this set.
It had come back by this point. This Rearview Mirror, it's I would classify it in the Pink Floyd kind of spacey.
Sure.
Over of Rearview Mirror. It is an 8-minute version. There's a lot of bleeps and bloops, not the Radiohead kind, but guitar based.
There's also a lot of
I liked it.
Repeating itself. It's not going into another it's not going into another riff. It's just kind of repeating the same riff over and over again for the minute or two that they're on something, and then it kind of changes just slightly to be a little bit something different. But I felt like this bridge here wasn't what I'm kind of on Tom's side. I don't think it was one of the better ones that we've heard in a while.
Well, I liked it. Rearview Mirror, that jam is always, they always do something different. It's always a highlight for me.
I will say though that the chorus after they kick back in with the strobe light going off, it feels like they built to that. Even though the build was a little long, it felt like the build was worth it. It's a huge way to end the night with the crowd being all invested in it. You're ending your first set, and I feel like it leaves you on a little bit of a cliffhanger there, that you're kind of wanting something more. So Rearview Mirror's always a big song for that. It always works in that aspect, but the finish was really strong. That's what I was most impressed by with this one. So that takes us into the encore, and Ed is out with his uke and says he's going to play a little Black Sabbath.
I don't think that's ever been done before in the history of the universe.
You have to have some visual memory of this, right, Tom?
Yeah, no, I do remember him coming out there with the uke and all of us singing along, and it is one of those riffs that you can just work out. Everyone kind of knows the bass melody, and just the kind of very humanizing visage of Ed out there, always the man of the people, just this little wooden instrument between him and 70,000 odd punters. It's a really cool moment. I mean, unfortunately it leads to Soon Forget. I'm not really a fan of Ed's twee uke inclinations, but still the Iron Man moment is a great moment.
Yeah, I think it's an ode to the country that they're in, and they have a couple of those in here. I think they're for the most part, all the bands that they listen to, probably 90% of them come from the United Kingdom. So it's an ode to that, and they don't do a lot of Sabbath outside of Mike playing a little War Pigs maybe, but it is fun to see that. It's fun to see the crowd react to it in the way they did. Ed kind of stops mid strumming to get an awesome reaction, and he mentions the band doesn't come to England enough to deserve that kind of response, so he's feeling guilty that the whole band isn't out there at that point to get that same response that he just got. So to add the guilt of getting this amount of attention, you've been camping for 3 days and we've been in a hotel. So that's that's what you get for going to festival shows and without showers, without real meals, and all that deal. So, but soon forget. It's not a song I'd ever expect them to do at a festival, but it's kind of a fun moment. Again, another binaural song, not a song that you're going to hear in an arena these days that much anymore. But, I would say that Ed is doing the solo stuff in the encore more during this point. And, this one was probably done, relatively rare. But a fun moment for me. I think one of the best things here is the transition, and it kind of hit me out of nowhere, because if you're not, paying attention to what's going on in the video, and you're just writing down something or not paying attention, you don't expect that the rest of the band is on stage. You think that it's going to take a second. So you get that immediate transition from the last, uke strum into Given to Fly, and that's a really cool sounding thing that they usually don't do something like that.
Just one more time around, and there is not a sound. He's landed, clutching Benjamin's never put the money down. He's stiffening, we're all whistling. A man will soon forget.
Yeah, in terms of if you're watching the video as well, the way it's shot's really nice. It's all settled on Ed, and you don't realise that Mike's there behind. And I think Ed wipes away a tear as well, during the ukulele section. He's clearly really moved.
I wouldn't be surprised. That sort of thing would get him emotional.
Yeah, definitely.
Given to Fly, John. We haven't touched up on it as you and a co-host yet. We're not gonna butt heads on it. I've sort of given up my grudge on it now, but this was a pretty fast version. If you were to put it in any category,
I love it. Anywhere it is, they can open with it. They can put it in Encore 1, Encore 2. They can close the first set. Anytime I hear those opening notes, I'm in. I'm all in. This is one of their best live songs. And again, you get that moment where everyone gets to put their hands up and yell "Fly." It's one of the great live songs.
It's an absolutely underrated moment. I will give you that. It kind of it's an ease back into the encore where Soon Forget is sort of just kind of fun and a little jokey, but Given to Fly, it's not going from Soon Forget into Once, where it would be a little jarring almost. That it's kind of it's intense. You kind of have to go pop to mid-tempo pop-ish kind of song, and then you hit into Once, and I think it was good opportunity to do that in that situation. So Given to Fly and Once in this point in the set list, I don't think they make a mistake here. I think that most of their choices in the set are pretty on target. As the way that everything is flowing momentum-wise, sounds good to me. I have no complaints.
Yeah, really dug this version of Once. For me personally, I like this kind of bloodier, scrappier, bruised Pearl Jam. I like the kind of riffier Pearl Jam. My top 3 Pearl Jam records are 10, Verses, and Backspacer. Mm-hmm. So I think Ed, he's really grimacing that first he really sounds anguished as it's coming out. Mike is hyping everyone up. Great version. Just they captured a lot of that kind of salubriousness about Once, that slippery nature, that mercurial story. It just has a kind of predatory leer to it that I thought was great. Got a real run and gun energy. They murdered this one.
Once is one of my favorite Stone songs live. I feel like every time that you hear Stone play on this, it's just, he has this kind of meticulous way about it, and it just sort of it matches the vibe of the album, where it's a little bit eerie, it's a little bit mysterious, and Stone always sounds really good on this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything after you said Backspacer was in your top 3.
Oh. First McCready, now this.
Yeah. And I also think No Code's horribly overrated.
Oh my gosh! I will get on a plane, and I will come fight you. I'll need your address later. But no, this version of Once, it's okay. It suffers a little bit from the dissonance syndrome from earlier, where I think it didn't have a lot of oomph to this version. I mean, yeah, the song. I mean, it's one where everyone in the crowd gets to go and yell. It's a perfect encore one song. So I'm not surprised to get it here.
We have Once going into Crown of Thorns. Crown of Thorns, we had mentioned it before. It's only the 11th time they'd ever played the song live, so this really feels like a treat for the crowd. It's still at this time, while I don't agree that it still feels special or as special now, at this time in this, situation, it does have that air of, it still feels like it's meaningful to them, like that it has sort of a semblance of, it's emotionally powerful at this time setting.
Oh yeah, it's a powerful moment anytime they play it. You usually get at the end, you'll get Eddie go over to Jeff and give him a hug, and go over to Stone and give him a hug. It's kind of a nice moment, for them to get this song back from before the band even started. And then I think you remember there was a Rolling Stone interview back in the early '90s where Ed talked about there was one of Andy's songs that he always wanted to play, but he didn't say what it was, but he was like, someday that there's one song of his I'd like to give it a shot, and this was it. And it's a highlight whenever you get it.
A transcendent song. I absolutely adore this. Love that they played it. I think it's testament to Stone's guitar playing as well, how it just based on some very simple chord progression that just feels so wide and so fecka and so full. Love Jeff's bass as well, sneaking up, and the ankles of the song.
Oh, yeah,
good placement.
Great bass line.
Yeah, really, really wonderful bass line. And great breakdown as well with the solo that wasn't written by Mike, but still is really, really good. I love that we have Once, Crown of Thorns, then into Comatose, which is my only real memory of the entire show is Comatose. So we would listen to Avocado all the time. And at school, with my friend Chris, we had this thing called Guitar Club that my biology teacher actually organised.
Guitar
every
Club?
Friday. Yeah, we had Guitar Club. So at lunchtime, we would go to the music rooms. This is our biology teacher organised this. We'd all bring in our guitars. There would be drums, bass, and we'd just jam and we'd just learn songs. And that was the first time my biology teacher got me into Rush. I'd never heard of Rush before, and he came over to me and my friend, gave us a tabs for YYZ, and was like, learn this, and we came back, and, just got into loads of different bands. And we used to play loads of Pearl Jam, and the main song we used to play at the time was Comatose. We had a really good version of Comatose. Just it's quite easy, and it's kind of, it's got the kind of punky idea.
Right.
But you can hear it on here, where Stone, I think, accidentally plays the... I remember Stone playing that and turning to Chris, my friend, and we're like, oh, they're playing Comatose, like, the only song, the song we know, note for note sort of thing. And I think this is a really good version of a really underrated PJ track.
I agree with that. It's one of those. It's a ball of energy. It's kind of like rocket fuel. When they're able to go on this and they're able to kind of hone it in. This is a good example of this version, because Eddie doesn't lose any of the energy. He doesn't lose his breath. He doesn't. Sometimes he like. I'll go back to the Fenway show from this past. That's every time I've said that with this song or any other song. I'm like, oh, a couple months ago. No, that was a goddamn year ago at this point. Jesus. We need more we need more shows. We need more things to talk about. But he got winded towards the end of it, and he had lost the words, and somebody in the front, he had to look at them and sort of kind of read his lips to get back on track with the words. But this, obviously they're playing it every night. It's not a rare song at this point, but as long as they don't lose their energy and he doesn't lose his breath and doesn't lose his balance on this sounds really, really good. I thought this was a great moment from this night too. And that brings us into the end of Encore 1 with Alive here, and the energy just being so incredibly high. If again, you need 3 songs at a festival show, it's Even Flow, it's Jeremy, and Alive, and you're going to get your crowd into it, you're going to get them going, you're going to get them chanting your haze at the end, and this is perfect for that.
It's alive. We're all still alive. Mike goes into Guitar Hero mode, they rock out, Eddie's leaping off amps, people are in tears, it's just it's what you want and what you need from a Pearl Jam show, really.
It's a great version. But no, I was going to say, do we need to talk about the fact that there's no black in this show? Is that something, Tom, that you were going into thinking that black is obviously it's one of everyone's favorite songs? Is that something you were looking forward to?
I don't really like black. I got to be honest.
Wow.
The jingle, I've always found a little cringy. I don't know why.
But
I realise this isn't the audience to say it to, but
I mean, look, hey, it's good to have a new voice in there, and
the chords of Black are astonishing though. The actual guitar playing is wonderful in it.
Yeah, it just hit me when I was looking at it. When I listened to the show a second time, I was like, wait a minute, there's no Black in this show. It just kind of surprised me.
So, huge reaction before they leave the stage for Encore 2, and Ed is kind of out there milking it a little bit. Thanks the crowd a couple of times, and thanks them for being safe. And then we come right back out for Encore 2, and that's where we get into Why Go, which I think it's good placement, and it's a way to tell the crowd time to say goodbye after a long weekend, but it's sort of also saying, why go home, after all this time being here at this long festival, why go home just yet? We got 2 more songs after this. I love when it's kind of like a subtle, a subtle thing. It's sort of when they opened up with it, the last show of the Spectrum, why, you don't want it to close, you don't want the Spectrum to go down, why go home? It's sort of a play on words. I like when they do that. It's a little
shot of adrenaline this late in the set too.
Yeah, and Why Go it's a perfect example of another one of those songs that just picked up energy at this point in their career. They weren't playing it for a long time. I believe Mansfield, the third night, was the first time they brought it back, and you ask the right and wrong people, and people would say that it was amazing from that night, and people would say that it was just horrible from that night, but it grew back into being one of these songs that had this kind of power, and now it's back to being a staple in the set, and where I think we should all be thankful for that, because it is such a, when it pops up, and it can pop up just about everywhere. It can kind of be a utility player of sorts, be in the encore, be an opener, be a post slow burn song.
Yeah, I think and the fans were the ones that did that. It's the crowd that comes in and does the
haze,
screaming back to him, why go home?
Right.
That's another one of those moments that this show is full of.
Ed, after this, kind of talks, and we get 2 more after Why Go, saying, growing up, we didn't know of England because of World War II. We knew of England because of rock and roll music, and he mentions Beatles, Kinks, and Zeppelin and Floyd and The Who, and says the next song is dedicated to The Who because it is a Who song. So that gets us into Baba O'Reilly. But again, going back to what they did with Sabbath, it's an ode to the British rockers. Just their admiration for Pete Townsend, the admiration for the Who has been apparent in their whole career. And I feel like every time they go to England, they have to do something that sort of pays tribute to them. So, and this is a really powerful version too. This is a really good one. The crowd is eating it up the whole entire time.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, Reading back then, kind of mid-2000s, it was still in that rock mold, and something like this was playing into the hands of the crowd. And, I mean, Eddie just worships The Who, right? Pete Townsend especially.
100%, yeah. I mean, if there's anybody that he, models himself after, I would say it's probably Pete Townsend. With the sometimes the smashing of the mic stands and even the playing style. Sometimes it's very Pete-like. So, to get Baba and out of every band that they do covers from, they'll do some Neil, but I think that they've done the most Who songs out of everybody.
He was even in a Who cover band called The What, which we'll have to get into at some point.
We will. That's interesting. That's information that's new to me. So that's funny. But yeah, this is a powerful version, and don't sleep on Boom during this version.
Oh yeah, and this is the point too where it becomes a celebration of the show. Like you're near the end. If there were lights, the lights would be coming on. And this is the part where it becomes a party, and we're getting ready to say goodbye.
Yeah, and that's Ledbetter kicking in at the end here, and it's fairly obvious that it's going to be the closer of this night. Anytime you have some sort of big show in a big setting, it's going to be Ledbetter that you're going to want to go out on, and we say it all the time. Is it a Ledbetter show? Is it a different show? And this is 100%, 100 times over a Ledbetter show. But the sing along at the end and showing the signals for being the final song at the festival, it feels really appropriate. McCready is at the end here. I felt like this was an excellent McCready show in general, but the stuff that he's doing when the band just kind of lets him go at it, and then he does a little Zeppelin riff at the end. You're ending. This is the only time you've seen Pearl Jam, right?
That's right, yeah.
So this is the last moment, so you got to be thinking at this point, like, this was all worth it to go here and to make the trek up a couple hours and through this festival of 80,000 people, whatever it is, but like to hear Ledbetter at the end here, what's your reaction?
Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, the classic ending, most of my, it's weird because I was watching this show earlier, yesterday, and my girlfriend was in the room, and she was like, "Oh, this is from Friends. This is the song that they play at the end of Friends," which most people know about it. But I actually knew this track, even though I wasn't that deep into Pearl Jam at the time. This was on Rearview Mirror. This was the closing track on the double disc, right. on the sort of softer disc, and always loved the song. I actually discussed this as well with Brad Blazek, B. He was on Alphabetallica. We did Helpless, and we spent a lot of time speaking about Pearl Jam, speaking about this, and how this song's a bit of a slice of glorious nonsense. A lot of the lyrics don't mean anything. I love Eddie with the binoculars staring out. Like, it feels like something from a stage play, and all the crowd leaving as well, and just this beating mass in front of him. It's got this really serene edge to it. But love Ledbetter. I think it's played expertly, and it's cherry on top, really. It's a great way to end.
Absolutely. So that is a 26-song show right there. That is a festival show, and we haven't done a lot of these. We haven't covered them that much at all, but now I'm intrigued. I think this got us in a little direction. I know Pink Pop a couple weeks ago was something a little different, but this is interesting. So could we do more festival stuff in the future? Maybe? What do you think?
I think we might have to.
We might have to. If they're going to have set lists like this, if it's going to sound like this, then I'm totally on board. So let's before we rate it, top 3 moments of this show. what would you say would be your top 3, Tom?
Damn, top 3. I really liked Once. I thought the Once performance really spoke to me. I thought Even Flow was excellent. Actually, Comatose I really enjoyed as well. Do they play that song often since?
It's, it's one that stuck around from Avocado out of all the ones that have. It's probably top 3 or 4, but this past year, last year in 2018, they had only played it one time. So who knows what they're going to do with it going forward? But yeah, it is something that has been brought back more often than not.
And weirdly enough, you would think you would get it. You think it would become one of those early set songs, like a Brain of J or a Last Exit. But a lot of times, a lot of times they stick it in an encore 1 or an encore 2. It's interesting.
It's just getting energy into the end of the set, I guess. So, John, what's your top 3 favorite moments of the show?
I'll say Crown of Thorns, number 3. I Am Mine, number 2. Great version of I Am Mine. And then Even Flow, got to be number 1 with the Mike solo and the Matt solo, the quintessential 2006 Matt Cameron drum solo. Love it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with mine, just the opening to the show. 3 would be Interstellar into Corduroy. How much I love that intro, and just Corduroy opening the show in general was just fantastic. Number 2, I'm going to put Even Flow in at number 2, and just everything that Mike was doing and Matt was kind of following up with the drum solo. I thought everything there was fantastic. And 3, I'm just going to kind of package just the whole entire set not being what you would expect for a festival set. So, throwing in 2 Riot Act songs, throwing in 3 binaural era songs, throwing in, not as many Avocado songs as they were playing at the time. And, although there's no code, it kind of doesn't hinder my how much I enjoyed it. So I would just say the set list choices overall in general would be my favorite actual part of the show. So let's do it out of 10. How would you rate it, Tom?
Probably a 6.5, something like that.
Wow.
Not that there's anything bad with the performances. Just from, again, Live on 4 Legs ruins Pearl Jam listening, because I've just heard of all these classic legendary shows, and that's
why no one listens to the show. Thanks.
Yeah.
Now we know. I've been trying to figure it out for months now, while we haven't had one listener for this show. It's because we've ruined the goddamn band for them. I knew it.
Had a great time, there and now, and watching it back and stuff like that. But I just feel that in the pantheon of the PJ live back catalogue, no one's going to be talking in 20 years about Red in '06. Even though it was great.
I agree with that, but then that's why we touch up on these.
Sure.
It's the little gems that you can find in the rough sometimes. Not every show is going to be as powerful or as memorable as the Orpheum or as a Wrigley show or as some of the early 1992, 1993 stuff like this. People aren't going to know what Reading is, and they're going to tune into this episode and they're going to be like, okay, well, what did they bring on this night? What does it sound like? And for a festival show, this is setting a new bar, I think.
Okay.
Especially coming out of Roskilde and not doing festivals for a long time. This is setting a new bar for them. That unfortunately, festival shows nowadays they haven't really followed up on. They're pretty basic sets, so that's probably why I'm so impressed by this set when I see it on paper. John, what would you rate it?
I will give it a 7. I think it does have some cool moments. Nobody put the Iron Man in their top 3, but that was a cool little moment for people.
Yeah, I sort of forgot about it. A lot of
crowd participation, which I think bumps it up a little bit. So I'll say solid 7.
I'm gonna give it a 7 too. It's kind of teetered between 7 and 7.5. It's hard for me to give a festival show a full, a really good 8 or an 8.5 or a 9 or something like that, just because it needs some historical context for me to get on that train. But as far as listenability goes, it is very It's very fun to listen to. It's energetic. It has great momentum throughout the whole entire night. I had a fun time listening to it, and I think it's a solid 7. So that's where we are with it. All right, so let's close this out. Again, Tom Kwei from the Alphabetallica Podcast. You can check that out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and where else can they listen to Alphabetallica, Tom?
Anywhere that accepts an RSS feed. Stitcher, or on YouTube as well. I also do a few other podcasts. I'm kind of addicted to doing podcasts, so I do a podcast about Tom Waits called Down in the Hole, which was my first podcast.
I'm sure Eddie's checking that one out. He's a big Tom Waits guy.
Yeah. We.
I wonder if anybody tunes into that show and thinks it's an Alice in Chains podcast.
Yeah, which there totally needs to be, by the way. But
I agree. I think there needs to be one that's like the rest of Seattle that doesn't add in Pearl Jam.
There is a Seattle podcast that isn't very good. I don't want to call them out, but I do think there should be a grunge podcast. I totally agree. Going from like Washington in the 80s, kind of the grunge influences, up to wherever. But actually, at the end of every Alphabetallica episode, I ask a lot of quick-fire questions like, what's your favorite member of the band, your favorite Metallica album, etc. And I always ask, if you do a podcast like Alphabetallica about a band, what would you do it on? And there have been so many podcasts put out into the world, like, you know, even like a Green Day one, or a Megadeth one, or a Mariam Faithful one, or, you know, just there's too many Metallica and Pearl Jam ones already. Please, people, don't do any more of those.
So again, there's Patreon. We have Patreon episodes up. The Evolution stuff is up.
$1 a month, you get access to everything.
Absolutely, and not just that, but you get a chance to come on our show, talk about your favorite episode, favorite show that you've been to. Yes, we're going to do an episode of Live on Four Legs where you talk about your favorite episode of Live on Four Legs. That makes
please pick one of mine. If we're gonna do that.
Yeah, somebody's calling in. They're like, you know what? I really want to talk about that Charlotte episode. That was a real solid episode. You sign up to our Patreon, you get a chance to come on the show. If that's not something that you're into, then we will take your request and we will cover and dissect the one show that you want to hear, and kind of become part of the Live on Four Legs crew, so to speak. We have that. Always check in on our Facebook page and the trivia that we're doing. If this is out on Wednesday, and you're listening to it on Wednesday, we will have a trivia on Wednesday night, I'm sure. So keep on the lookout for that on our Facebook page. And outside of that, don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcast 5 stars in order to enter our poster contest, where we'll be giving away a poster during our 1-year anniversary show. So until next week, we'll be doing Glasgow, Scotland. That's going to be a fun episode. We're going to have some guests on for that. Go out there if you're a Metallica fan, if you're not a Metallica fan, and just kind of want to hear, Tom talk to guests about music. I'm going to be on an episode pretty soon.
Yeah.
When are we going to do that?
Yeah, we're doing Whiskey in the Jar, right?
Whiskey in the Jar, yeah.
Yeah, which is soon. It's going to be the penultimate episode, actually.
Whoa!
So yeah, that's
awesome.
due early October. So yeah, the 4th of October that episode will be out. So we'll probably record a few weeks before. But yeah, looking forward to that, definitely.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely, that's going to be a good time. I don't know when I'm going to be able to record. That's a busy time for me. But
okay, we'll work it out.
We'll work it out.
Whenever's good for you.
Tom, thanks for coming on again. This was a fun show.
Yeah, Tom, thank you so much. That was great.
No, Randy, John, thank you so much. Appreciate the offer.
Absolutely. So this is the end. We're here, not for much longer, and although we may be parting ways, I miss you already, and I miss you always. No singing today. So check us out next week. If you haven't listened to our show that often, then go check out more episodes in our archive. Until then, we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.